No, it's been around probably the last 14, 15 years. They actually have a midwifery a master's program at Bastyr that's centered in social justice and reproductive justice. And then as a result of that, yes, as a result of that, they spun off and did something more specific on really how do we dismantle this system. It's a 1 year master's that really focuses on maternal health principles and really how can we really literally work not only within the system, outside the system, and really dismantle all of our health systems around maternal health. So yes, a thesis, you're writing a thesis, you're doing all the things, but really making sure that we are, making sure we have equitable healthcare for all of Black and Brown people, but obviously that's going to help everybody. it's they may have it, but they may not be social justice focused, right? I think that's the reason why I picked that steer for a master's program or even doing something not traditional like a formal MPH. Because a lot of these other systems aren't going to teach the stuff that I want to learn and hear about and really center our experiences. Like I said, it was spun off from their midwifery program and they still are training lots of great midwives and are preceptors for midwives around the country, but specifically those individuals have to move to Seattle because this is based out of Seattle, Washington. So they actually have to physically move to Seattle to finish up the last part of their preceptorship and the last part of their master's in midwifery. Yeah. No, it is. I hope that other organizations really pick up on censoring um, reproductive and social justice in their work. But how our as as we are right now in this administration, we're moving so far from it. So we trying to survive. Right, right. We just trying to survive. But I think that there are other organizations. I'm even considering getting a PhD at this point in health equity. And I am. It's something that's been on my heart. So there are a lot of HBCUs that are really focused on it. So it's something that I'm considering even looking at that versus going to another white institution to do a PhD because I want to make sure our voices are centered as well. So, but yeah, I've been this last year, I've been a associate professor with something I didn't add to my bio. I've been associate professor at Bastyr. So it's been fun to go back and teach midwifery students and maternal child health students on advocacy and grief and loss. So it's been fun. In bits and pieces. So yes, I have not really shared publicly about, I may have, but not in detail about my own motherhood journey, at least this last year and a half for sure. No. Mhm. Mhm. We don't. We don't. Wow. 10 years ago, I was a year into motherhood, and 2015, Barack Obama was still president. My son just got diagnosed with cerebral palsy, spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, meaning that his body's very stiff and it affects all four limbs, so his whole body. It's probably the more severe form of cerebral palsy. And I had no idea what life would be like with a child with a disability, especially after receiving a formal diagnosis. So now, 10 years later, my son will be 11 this year. We made it. We made it 10 years by the graces of God. So, but no, I did not think that I would go through the journey of obviously starting a podcast, because I started a podcast a couple years later. I went through divorce. I moved, 4 hours from home, from where I was living at the time in 2015. And now I'm on the other side of motherhood where my son is in custody with his dad primarily, and I am the non-custodial parent. So, no, I did not think all of that would transpire within this 10-year period. But I'm grateful for the journey, because I don't know if if I didn't receive that diagnosis and we were still trying to figure out like how to manage all these medical challenges with my son without a formal diagnosis, it would be more difficult even today, facing what we're facing with this new administration and them trying to cut a lot of the things that are needed for my son, like Medicaid. A lot of his care is received through Medicaid and through that insurance practices, let alone, the dismantling of Department of Education, which really focuses on kids with special needs, like my son. So it 100%. So I think that I needed this journey, and I think I needed rest. Let's be real. Parenting is already hard. Parenting is already challenging in of itself in this new world and society that we're living in. But it's even more challenging parenting a child with a disability and trying to navigate the system, because you're put against a lot of unwanted pressures from a financial perspective, the emotional and mental health perspective, to the physical challenges of caring for a child as they grow. So that was a part of the decision when we talked about obviously separating and divorce, what that would look like challenging for both of us as we both aged and as he got older and grew bigger, because he relies on 24/7 care. Even with the help of nurses and other in-home health people, it's still a lot of weight on both parents, right? Individually or collectively, to care for a child as they grow. So we made that decision way before we got divorced that we would do this. So I did 3 years with him post divorce. And then now we've been about a year and a half into my ex husband having my son full time. And then I am the weekend parent. And I think, man, you talked a little bit about this, about the challenges of taking away or taking off that Superwoman cape, which is what we should have all done after November 5th, right? But also recognizing that it is okay, that my child is going to be fine, and that this mommy guilt or mental strain and pressure that we put on moms to always have their children needs to be released. And I needed to create not only having boundaries within myself, but also boundaries around my friends and family who were judging me because of the decision that I made. They knew the challenges of what it took to raise a child with a disability, but they really didn't recognize how much mental strain that is of having people in and out your house all the time, the physicality of caring for a child as they're growing. And sometimes you just want a rest and a break from that work. So I had to let some people go, put more boundaries up, and then give myself grace because this was my time to pour into me, which I had never had. We don't do that as moms, let alone never actually having the time dedicated, for a period of time. So this will be 3 years of time that I'll have without my son on a day-to-day basis that I have that I can pour into myself. And then I had to really wrestle with, what does that look like? Like, am I dreaming a new dream of what that looks like for me? Am I able to just sit still? Because, I just talked about going to get a PhD, right? Like, you know how we are. Like, oh, well, we have more time. Yes. So it's like, is you going to go back to school? Child. So where it's been hard for me because it's like, all right, well, I have all of this extra time. What do I do with this extra time? And why have I never taken this time out on this entire motherhood journey over these, like you said, looking back 10 years to actually just breathe and just say, you can be still, sis. Like, you don't have to go out and chase the next thing or look for what next success is. This is success where you are right now. You've already done enough. Right? Oh, mhm, mhm. Mhm. So exactly. So essentially it is us rotating every 3 years, and we said, yes, we said we would reevaluate because when he's 18, obviously that's different, right? At that point, we would have to do a whole nother thing for Medicaid and someone to actually be, have custody over him in that regard. So yeah, we're gonna switch back and forth until he gets 18, and then at that point, we'll decide what we want to do. But this is pending my son's health. It stays on the up and up. I have always gone back and forth, not only with my ex-husband about, um, if his health starts to decline and we can't physically care for him, to putting him in a home and being understanding of what that looks like and recognizing that, at some point in his journey, we may not be able to care for him in our home individually, and that we may need this ex correct. Correct. And then we would be open to putting them in a home. So yes, I'm open to what that looks like up until that point. And it's gonna get to that point at some time where physically he's gonna be too big for me to do anything for him without the help of a nurse, and or his health may decline. And then that's when we would make the decision on the next step. So I think I'm very much so a planner in that. This is all documented because I just don't know. Like you said, if something could happen to me, I want to make sure this is executed properly. Yes, absolutely. Things shift so often that I mean, even now, I could bring up a couple different incidents that things have shifted in some of the care that he's received, that I have come in and I have wanted to come in and have that takeover spirit again and be like, let me take my baby back because what y'all doing over there ain't good. Yeah. And I had to really, really sit with myself, but also with my therapist and be like, sis, when is my trigger going to be to say, hey, no, I want my son back based on the care that he's receiving versus me saying, okay, let me continue to affirm that he's getting the right care that he deserves and needs, and that he does have nurses who genuinely are compassionate and empathetic towards him outside of the care he may be receiving from his dad. It's a journey because it's a wrestling too that you go back and forth of do I continue to live in this guilt and this shame and this anxiety of what it feels like to be the non-custodial parent? Or do I embrace that journey and say, girl, live your life, find things that bring you joy, you know, go do something with your hands and get busy. Watch something grow, center yourself and not feel and be still. Because that was really what I did this last year. Obviously, this year I'm doing a little more. I'm thinking about other things. But the first year I just sat still because otherwise I would have rushed into I did. There was so much. Well, I'm talking about no, I'm talking about sitting still from business stuff, from projects, from, chasing after this next thing. No, Erica was not here. I was traveling all last year. I did. I poured into exactly. That's what I got a PhD in for sure. No, I poured into traveling and maximizing moments where I could be out of the country. And I felt like that's what rejuvenated me in general, because I love to travel. I love to experience ultra cultures. I love food. It was just like, it's a no brainer. Since I had the time, why not use that time in the best way as possible? I'm going to travel again the same this year. So, because I have the time. So I think that those are the things you should do. Yeah, those are the things you should do. Mhm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have known. Yeah. Yeah. They got a whole daddy. Right. Ain't nobody concerned about how you are. Right. Are you? Right. What do you need? Right. Very external. And it's also very cultural, y'all. Like, this is a cultural thing. The way that your mother says that to you, and it's inherent, it's subconscious. It just came out her mouth, right? Like, it's so culturally embedded in us that I always had to remind my mom and my grandmother and say, "Hey, y'all, like, Max is not with me today. I don't know how he is." And if you want to know what's going on with him, you could just call his dad. You don't have to go through me. Right. You don't have to go through me. You can easily call his dad, or let me give you the number to his nurse. Call his nurse. His nurse will let you know too. It's so cultural. Mhm. Right. They do. Oh, for sure. Yes, very much so. Yes. Mm-mm. Normal. It was normalized. Right. Ain't no black people. Mhm. The one thing that they have said every time I even mention it to family members about it is like, "Oh, you don't have to do that." I'm like, "You have not even walked a mile in my shoes. You have no idea of the things that I have to do." Right. Yes. 100%. Oh no, I know I'm in. It is very much so uncharted territory, just because of the cultural guilt, like we just talked about, from friends, from family members, from society, thinking that all children are best with moms, right? At any point in their life, but just like you proved, in Caribbean, West African cultures, those kids live everywhere else, boarding school, other family members, and they're fine, right? They grow up fine. It is a healing journey. I think I had to grieve what that looks like, or I had to grieve in general what motherhood would look like for me. Max is my only son. He has a disability. I'm not going to parent other typical children that are mine, like physically mine, DNA mine. I can adopt children, those types of things. So I had to grieve that part of the journey. I knew that my child was going to be different, and I knew that this journey to motherhood will be different compared to friends. Once I went through the process of changing over to my ex-husband, which was a process. I didn't really talk about this, but when you're switching states for Medicaid services, it is an entire process. It took almost 2 years, so we had started this process like while we were going through our divorce to make that change from Virginia Medicaid to Maryland Medicaid. Like there's lists that you have to get on. They have to prove it that your child actually has a disability. They have to go through all these doctor's appointments and all these things. Like it's a whole thing to change over Medicaid from state to state. So when I knew that we were up for it, go ahead. Hmm. Yes. Oh, there's so much bureaucracy for receiving that care. It's such an added layer. Yeah, and I think that with my child who actually has a physical disability and you physically can see him and look at him and know that he has a disability, that's a barrier in of itself. So getting care for him, because nurses and doctors can actually see him and see that he has a disability, is different than those who may be autistic and on the spectrum who are also disabled. And it's more of a mental thing. And they look like perfectly healthy kids, but doctors and nurses can't see it on that child until they do some formalized assessment. So the barriers to getting insurance or the barriers to Medicaid vastly differs from state to state. And every state's different on how much they're going to cover based on, the emotional health disability or the physical disability. So luckily we were moving from Virginia to Maryland, where Maryland actually go Maryland, because Maryland got Black everybody. Y'all come on over here to Maryland. Come on over here to Maryland. Blue state to blue state. No, 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 for sure. Since he has a physical disability, we were able to get more services offered in Maryland compared to Virginia. So it was like a no-brainer to make that change. It just took forever because we had to go through every doctor, every special services that he receives to check the box to say he is physically disabled. So think about all of those kids out there who are on the spectrum or undiagnosed. They may not even be able to get the basic services of Medicaid or insurance to basically cover any type of in-home care. Every year, they reevaluate Medicaid services and what the insurance covers for every person who is on Medicaid. And a lot of people get dropped off from Medicaid based on where they are, whether they have a physical disability or emotional or health disability. And many times, our kids who are on the spectrum are dismissed off of Medicaid because they don't have that physical disability, only have that emotional or health disability. It's very critical in these times, especially, as we record this podcast, where a lot of these things were voted on to be removed from the federal government and given control to the states. Red states that are ran by red, Republican, they may end up slicing more of that Medicaid budget, where kids like my son won't get any services, or it's minimal services. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was. It was a barrier because we were living in different states. I actually just moved to Maryland. It's been almost a year. I moved to Maryland just so I could also receive the same services as my ex-husband, and we could share services through Maryland Medicaid because they offer so much more services for my son. So, yeah. You don't, I mean, it's, and it, oh, oh, oh. And I think that that is a part of the hurtful part and the part that you have to grieve and release that guilt because it's like, oh, I did all these things right. I made all these provisions, right? I thought about, I planned about it, I prayed about it, I did all these things. And now I'm getting hit because this is a cultural thing of thinking like my child has to be with me 24/7, 365. And even if they go live with their dad for 3 years, I am the bad mom. I had to literally put up boundaries and release it and really work through it in therapy because I'm like, am I a bad mom? Like, what, what did I do wrong? Like, no. And then give myself permission to actually find the things that bring me joy, the things that I can go deeper into creatively and within myself to know that my mothering journey isn't just caregiving and caring for and of this being the all to this one person, because essentially that is what my motherhood journey is, that I have the permission to mother myself and care for me and pour that information and that energy back into myself. And I'm still on that journey because it's still very difficult, especially when I'm around friends or family with their kids, or if I show up to spaces and I don't have my son. Because right, like I have all this extra time. So most of the time that I'm going to family events or things, Max is not with me. I'm a person. I'm not just Max's mom, right? I can show up to family events and Max not be here with me, and that's okay. And you all got to get used to this. That Max is not going to be with me, right? You- Yeah, so it's a journey. I think that you have to give yourself permission to stand in your truth and know that I am doing something unconventional, and that is okay. Not everybody's going to have a traditional motherhood journey. There is going to be bumps and bruises and things are going to be different. And I have to sit in with that uncomfortableness of what this unconventional journey is so far. And They- they're 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 secretly jealous and envious. It does. Live a life well. Exactly. 100%. Yep. Culturally, this is what we have been ingrained and taught. It's that, oh, motherhood is end all be all. It's a sacrifice. You gotta die to self. Exactly. And you, child, everything. The best thing since sliced bread. He's a good, well, he won't a good man. He was not a good man, right? He's, mm-hmm. Yep. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And their dad is 100% capable. So that's the 100% capable, and figure it out. Mhm. Mm. Mhm. 100%. And be okay with that. Yes. It is a part of the journey. That's the wrestling that you do. Yeah, it's like, "Oh, you know, should I leave my child over there, knowing what's gonna happen?" But yeah, no. We I've had to do that a lot, especially with, like, hospital visits. My son went to the hospital a lot during the pandemic, probably once a month. His first hospital visit with his dad was guilting me to come, and I said, "Oh, no, I'm not coming. You got this. You got it. You got this." Oh, no. Oh, for sure. But you but that's the only way I have to release that, because ultimately, I don't want my mind ruminating on all of these things that I should be doing in this moment when he is a perfectly capable parent to do the same things. He knows all the details about my son just like I do. Yes. Mhm. It's non-Western. That's the better word. That is such the better word. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. We very much so are. Do you or asking yes, very much so asking that questions. Yes. Because I think that's the biggest part of my journey too. It's like, all right, well, how many people in my circle have really come to me and asked me why I'd made this decision instead of jumping to the conclusion of she shouldn't have made that decision, right? Because I needed a break. It was very much so of, I know this pandemic was hard enough. We were in the hospital. I was doing it by myself. I was going through divorce. I was doing a lot of things all at once. And I was like, I needed, yes, ma'am. All of this happened at the same time. So I needed time to not only pour back into myself, but mentally be able to rest from the day-to-day hustle of caring for a child with a disability. So I knew that I was going to need a break at some point in time. It just so happened to happen at the right time where my son was going through a lot of medical challenges and we were in a hospital for 3 and 4 weeks at a time. Like I just needed a physical and mental break. And luckily, he's been extremely healthy this last year because I don't know mentally if I would have been able to cut that off and be like, all right, he's good with his dad. I still think I would have had that takeover spirit again and came back to and not having the ability to have that mental rest to really grieve that entire 4 or 5 years of parenting and going through a divorce and really being able to pour back into myself. The other part of that is asking for help, right? So during that time frame, because it was the pandemic, I did not ask for help. So I took on a lot more responsibility when it came to caring for my son than I should have. And I know now I'm equipped to what that looks like and exactly how much help I need when I do get him back full time so that I won't go back into that burnout state before I'll go back. I have absolutely. But I needed this time to do that. If I would have kept going, like they would have been like, Erica, what is going on with you? Right. And I think that this is me saying, hey, I know something shifted in my life. I've had a lot of transition happen in a short period of time. I need some time to myself to really mentally go through this. And I'm saying all this because this is a privilege. I'm not saying that this is not a privilege to do so, but it is. But it doesn't just have to be for a child with a disability. This could be for any typical child where both parents are both capable. And if you aren't doing 50-50 custody, as Thea was talking about, where you can take a time period and send your child to be with the other parent so that you can pour back into yourself, so that you can get mentally well and more centered and more grounded so that you know what this parenthood journey could look like for you on the other side. I love the way that you put it, Thea, is that, we need to challenge what those narratives are and be curious and ask why. Because I don't know if people ask me why. No one's asked me why, or it's the reason why I have not even really shared about this, even on my own podcast. Mhm. Same result. Mm-mm. Oh, good. 100%. Oh, for sure. Mhm. 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 I think everything is always up for renegotiation. Mm-mm. Mm. No. Mm-mm. Or a month or 2 or whatever. Right. I love how long it takes. Yes. They're, yeah. That's just what we decided on. It may be longer on one part or the other. No significant number to the 3, to be honest with you. The other part of it in the back of my mind when we made this decision too is that I don't know if you know history of kid or people with cerebral palsy, is that typically their bodies start to decline between 16 and 21. So I knew when he got the diagnosis that, I don't know how long I'm going to have with my son. So I want to make sure his dad has, just as much time as I do being able to, be the custodial parent and do, the day to day, the fun things with him. And see him every day and not me feel selfish to want that all the time. Cause that's the other part of it. It's like, I know my son, they don't have a long life just because of just their health elements. So, oh, that's very hard. That's very difficult in holding that because it's almost anticipated grief. I don't know if you all talked about that a lot, especially for like people who have like cancer or some other diagnosis that is, we know the prognosis is coming. Yes, the prognosis is coming. It's a grieving process of what that is and what it is to come, knowing that lots of kids around Maxwell's age, I follow them and their parents on social media, and a lot of them have passed away over this last year or two. And it is a recognizing of, I don't know if my child is going to be healthy for another year or two by the time he gets back to me. But grieving what motherhood and enjoying the moment, the present moment. I think the hard part of this is, or the part that goes back to what you're saying is understanding that that my all and well-being, that this is just a role, right? Like I am not focused on just mothering and caregiving. I need to focus on Erica and dreaming a new dream outside of this. So I go back to that because ultimately my motherhood journey is still going to be there, even if he is gone and God has called him home, right? So I need to still figure out what that dream is, what that goal, what those goals are, and really center that around what it looks like as I think about and anticipate what grieving would look like if he's not physically here. I think, yes, I discovered that I don't know how to sit still. And I had to learn what stillness means to me and what am I okay with. I think that any transition that we go through, we always are looking for the next thing versus just sitting in that transition. So I had to be okay with being silent in some spaces. I had to be okay with just not doing nothing and just sitting on my couch. And I had to be okay with pouring into other things that brought me joy, like travel, like gardening. I have a garden outside that I started to grow into, and do other things to really center what that joy is as I was grieving, as I was on my own healing journey. And not feel like I had to jump into the next thing immediately because I have all this extra time. So obviously now I'm thinking about like, oh, should I go get this other degree or should I still be still? It's not like I don't have a lot of things that are on my plate. I do, but I think that is a Black woman's stigma of it's a cultural thing too, of feeling like I have to chase the next thing because I have this extra bit of time versus saying I got to sit still with myself. I have to understand where all of these emotions have come from and really work through them and really do the hard work. Um, Sitting with them, journaling them, talking about it with other people, going to therapy. I recently started group therapy, which has been amazing. I think being in community with other Black women is a part of it, like, is a part of your healing journey. And I think that has helped. And then also just asking for help. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned throughout all of this is like I ask for help in my own ways, but I don't think I've always been very specific on exactly what I need, particularly from family and friends who do want to help out when it comes to Maxwell's care. So I always think that no one can do it, which is not true. It's not true at all. I actually, if I show somebody how to do it, I'm pretty sure they can do it all, outside of my mom and my sister. So I think that that is what I have really have learned is like, girl, you can't do this all by yourself. You need help. You need community, and you need to continue to foster that so that when, as you mentioned before, this is new data. So when I do come back, when he does come back to me, that's already in place. And I still can go after the things that I am dreaming of, that the things that I have goals for, the things that I want to attain. And motherhood is not holding me back from doing all of those things. Oh, it was hard, y'all. Lots of tears, lots of cleansing tears. Um, I think I probably cried going and cried on the way back. And then I really didn't know what to do with myself because a lot of my journey's been caregiving. So it's like, all right, so what do I do now? And at the time, I thought like, oh yeah, I'm single, I'm gonna be out in the street. Girl, I got in a whole relationship. So I wasn't outside, y'all. So no, but we travel a lot. No, hot girl summer. So I really had to sit with myself and be with myself and be alone. I think that's the other part that I don't think that we do enough as moms or as parents or in general is just to be by ourselves because you do, you do. I That's not your testimony. So you need your time. I'm not an introvert. But it's forcing me to be one because it's like he's not here. He's not here. So it's not like Max is talking back to me, obviously, because he's not. But he's physically here. So it's like, okay, the presence is there. The energy's there. He can feed off of me, right? But when he's not here, it's like, girl, you in here talking to yourself. And right. And I had to learn to be comfortable with that cuz I don't know if people really know what that is. Like you got to be comfortable with just being by yourself and be okay with that. Like you're okay. I also moved from an apartment, which a high-rise apartment, I saw people every day, to a house. Well, it's just me. So that was another transition too. It's like, oh, I'm in this house by myself. All right. So yeah, it was a roller coaster because I had to really, and then when my son comes back, all right, now he's back here for the weekend. All right, so what am I doing with him? Do I feel like I have to be the weekend parent where we're always doing something? So no, I didn't even do that. I was just like, no, we're gonna do the things that we normally would do on the weekends even if he was with me. So like I never felt like I had to take on that role. I was like, I'm gonna still be mom regardless, whether he's there, or he's here, and we're doing stuff or not. We're still gonna have a good time. So yeah, it was hard. We don't. It's very much so. It does. Mhm. That's so true. So crazy. Absolutely. Meet me outside. True. You are. Mhm. Absolutely. Still just doing a lot of work, doulaing, and I got like what 6 or 7 clients this year. Another thing that I love about having extra time, I could actually, physically go out and do some doula work in person. So that's been fun. Still doing the podcast that has not gone away. This is year 8, which is crazy. And more events coming around the DC area. So just stay tuned to Sisters in Loss and our website and our Instagram page, and the social medias, YouTubes, we're everywhere. No, no, I'm around. I told you I'm taking a rest. I'm around. Come see me. I'll pop up. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. We're waiting for those downloads. We're coming. All right. Thank you all.